And we are live. Hello and welcome everybody on this webcast, Facebook Live, YouTube Live. This is Claudia here with the founder and CEO of Utopian Global. And we're going to talk about numismatics versus precious metals from Utopian Global, bullion, etc., etc. Bill, first of all, how are you? How's everything?
Great, Claudia. Great in Switzerland, and nice day here today. But great to be on this such an important call, helping people understand the difference between numismatics and bullion in one sense.
Yes, this is one of the questions, of course, we're always getting. I mean, since we really started with the company in 2008, or you started, of course, the company, there's always, this question coming up, numismatic, what should I do? Should I just straight out own bullion? Where should I store it? How should I store it? Should I get it delivered? I mean, there's tons of questions, but today we really want to focus on numismatics versus, of course, a bullion or what we have. So numismatic is such a silver eagle, but Bill is going to really talk about and explain you guys, because this is really key knowledge for you. So Bill, what is your take on? We can't hear you, Bill. You're muted.
Yes, Claudia, it's a great question actually. So let's before we get into the valuations of the numismatic, let's talk about the true ownership of the numismatic. Okay, most numismatics are sovereign coins. A sovereign coin, just like a sovereign banknote, whether it's US, whether it's a euro, etc. You're not the actual legal owner of it. The state is the owner of anything that is sovereign. That's why it's called sovereign in one sense. And actually, you are legally the bearer to that particular US note or that US coin, or the British note. Or the euro, of course. We are the legal bearers to be able to use it, but we're not the owners of them. They're owned by the legal government, of course, the ones that actually control the money. So ownership is one issue when it comes to numismatics. And when you buy bullion, for example, this one I have here, it's a bar. It's certified as a bar, and I'll tell you why it's certified as a bar. Different laws in different countries. This is 99.9 pure gold. Okay, it's got the stamp of the world on the back, but it's not a numismatic. It's just a gold bar, refined at Argo Horizon Refinery in Switzerland. So when you buy that, you are the legal owner of that. There's nothing on there that says you are the bearer of that in one sense, like any sovereign currency. Something that's been sovereign means that the state at any time could technically actually confiscate or ask them to be actually brought back to the state and be exchanged back to paper currency. Now, historically, it has happened. And we talk about in the US, it happened from 1933 to 1972 or 73 it was. So for many, many generations, for many decades, it was illegal for US citizens to actually own gold. And anyone that owned gold at that time had to actually give it back. So ownership is one thing. The other thing regarding a sovereign coin is quite often you'll have coins that have a stamp on it. It says it might say it's $5. It might say it's a silver dollar coin. It might say it's a $20 coin. So you have what we call a face value issued by the state or the sovereign nation. And we also have the metal content in one respect. And I suppose, so you really have two valuations. The state would value it in their sense as currency. They would actually value it on the face value, saying it's worth $1 or worth maybe 50 cents or $5, whatever it might be. But when it comes to the metal content could be significantly more. So I'm not saying that confiscation will happen. I'm just saying that historically it's happened in the past. Okay, and if they did, it's normally the powers to be that would actually decide on what your true valuation of your coin is, who's the owner of it, and secondly, the valuation of it. Now, when it comes to the other point of numismatics is, what are you really buying? The valuation is based really on two things. It's based just not on the precious metals itself. It's also based on, it could be the design, it could be the year, might have the Queen's face on it, might have a kangaroo on it. It could have many images on that, but it's a sovereign coin. It's a numismatic. It may have maybe perfect in its production, have no markings on it, and therefore they call it a numismatic. And collectors, like you collect stamps, you collect artwork, may through demand and supply, they may oppose a certain valuation on these particular types of coins. The question to the marketplace is, who is the expert? I would suggest that 99.9% of people listening on this call are not experts when it comes to numismatics, including myself. I don't even want to become a numismatic collector. I'm not interested in that. To be an art collector, a stamp collector, with the idea of creating prosperity, you must be highly skilled in that game and be very, very good at what you're doing, because you need to be able to buy at the right price, and you also need to have liquidity. Now, liquidity when it comes to numismatic is a really important thing. Now, you may recall many years ago, Claudia, it might have been 2008, 2009, we were in Perth, Australia, with Philip Judge, the bullion banker, and we went to the Perth Mint. Okay, and there we bought a I think it was actually a numismatic coin. May have had a kangaroo or something on it, but anyway, it was a sovereign coin, so it was owned by the Australian government in that sense. I bought it. I walked out the door, walked straight back in the door, and said, "I want to sell this back to you." And I think the spread was 30%. So I would have lost 30% straight away if I had sold it. I did it as a test case. That's all I did it for. And primarily, if you look at the purpose of Utopian Global, we're not speculators when it comes to, of course, one, price, and secondly, when it comes to a numismatic value. We buy it purely as an insurance type policy, a hedge against the effects of inflation. Gold and silver has been money. It's been money for thousands of years. So I like to own, and I constantly buy silver and gold as a hedge against inflation. I liquidate my sovereign notes, whatever currency they're in, and I'll convert part of that back to physical gold and or silver. Okay, so the value that I'm buying, the maximum amount of dollar or euro, whatever the currency might be, I want to get a maximum amount of pure gold or pure silver for that. And when it comes to the buying side, we keep it very simple at Utopian Global. You put $1,000 in to buy silver or gold. Initially you have $30 worth of fees. We charge 3% above the spot, because the spot price is purely just the price used when it comes to a futures contract. It's a non-tangible price. Okay, then you've got, of course, to get it into the physical form, production side, and there's fees on top of that, of course. So step one with us, it's very simple to buy gold and silver. You can buy for as little as $25. You know that you don't have to be an expert, because we're very transparent. We're saying to you that for every $1,000 you buy in gold, 3% of that, which is $30, not much, is going to go for administration fees. Everything else is going to the gold or going to the silver. So it's very, very, very clear. So when it comes to liquidate, you can do some very quick calculations. You can say, okay, I bought $1,000 worth of gold. It was 3%, so I have $970 worth of gold, and I bought it at let's say I bought it at $1,900 an ounce. So I go to the marketplace, let's say it's a year's time, or 2 weeks' time, or tomorrow, and I want to sell that again, and the market price is $1,850, or maybe it's $2,000. You can calculate straight away what your position is based on the number of ounces or grams that you have, based on the price that you paid. You know exactly where you are, and it's highly liquid. You'll always be able to sell with us on the saver program that we have. You can always liquidate, as you know, Claudia, back to cash very quickly. So you know number one, because it's privately produced at the Swiss refinery. Number one, that you are the true owner of it. It's yours. Okay. Secondly, the valuation of it is that it's easy to calculate the valuation of the actual silver or the gold. And thirdly, when it comes to liquidation, I mean, why are you owning gold and silver? Why do you want to own it? That's the first thing. If you want to be an art collector or a metal collector, like a numismatic collector, that's a different thing altogether. But I think for most people on this particular call, 99.9% of them would be all about wealth preservation and building up true wealth through the effects of gold and silver. Now, when you want to sell with us, it's very simple. You know the purity of your gold because it's certified. You know the weight of your gold because it's certified as well by the refiner. So when you go and sell, there's always a buyer on the other side, and you know they're going to buy at the market price. Whatever the London bullion market sell price is at the refinery, that is the price you're going to get. So you know that it's going to be very easy to convert it back from precious metals back to, of course, your currency for liquidity. And as an active member with Utopian Global, there's actually 0 fees. So me, like when I walked out of the Perth Mint, they charged me 30%. I wanted to charge me 30%. Here, as an active member of Utopian Global, there's no fees. Now, if you're not an active member, a customer, we charge 3%. Okay, on the sellback. On the buying, we would charge 8% as a customer. As a non-affiliate, active affiliate, we charge 8% when you buy. But as a member, as an affiliate member of us who's active, you'd actually pay 3% above your spot price for gold and storage, and everything's included in it. So I think the big keynotes to take away from Numismatic is, if you're an expert, that is fine. Most people are not. You don't really know what you're buying. Secondly is when it comes to liquidity, when it comes to sell back, how do you know to value it? What's it worth? And I think the other important point is, I buy gold for many, many years. I know you've been doing it now for 12 years also, Claudia, taking your commissions, converting it back into parts of gold and silver. You're certainly not a seller. I know that you're a buyer. You're a wealth accumulator. But the other point I wanted to make about it is that, just lost my train of thought. One is that you have liquidity. You can sell it back very, very easily. And what was the other point I was going to make? It'll come back to me in a moment. So
let me then may add something as well here. What for me is also key is diversification. You see, with a numismatic coin, which I have experienced because I have tested it as well as. So let's say I have here this Elizabeth Australian 50 cents, and this is when coming back to what you said before, Bill. That is a legal tender. So I'm actually not the owner, I'm only the bearer of it, because it's actually legal of the country of Australia. So if I wanted to sell that here, well, I'm not able even to sell it, because what can they do in Germany with an Australian coin? They can't melt it down. They can't mint it, right? Yet, of course, when it comes to our gold, or what you have showed, I have here also a very beautiful coin, which is actually it's bullion, but it's also a collectible in one sense, produced, of course, for your company, our company, Bill. And it's a big difference, because this I can sell anywhere. And you may recall we went into different places. I mean, they were literally running behind us in the different countries. They wanted to have our gold. Why? Well, because it is, again, not legal tender, it's private bullion.
It's true. The point I was going to make is that we're all hoarding gold in one sense, as well, preservation. So there may come a time that you may need to liquidate. So at a time of crisis, you need to liquidate. First of all, you need to have a buyer on the other side. And secondly, I would suggest that 99.9% of buyers don't really care if it's numismatic, but they'll offer you the money for the gold content or the silver content. That's what has the value, to be quite honest. So in times of crisis, when people are selling their metals, it's really the intrinsic value of your precious metals that it actually gives us its real value. Now, the value over and above for the numismatic side, that's questionable unless you have something that's very, very, very unique. But I would suggest that I certainly do not do it. And you can actually, when I'm in Dubai, and you go to the gold souk, which is the gold market in Dubai, it's a huge place. There's gold laying everywhere. I mean, because for the Indian market, of course, marital ceremonies, etc., which is primarily this season, September, October, you'll see women laced in gold, because it's a transfer of wealth to the next generations, of course. And so to value it, of course, is number one, you've got to know the purity. So all of ours is 24 karat, it's 99.9 pure. So you know the purity straight away. And then you may negotiate for the design. It's like wearing a jewelry. I don't wear gold. I like to bank it. When I say bank, I like to vault it at Loomis and have some home, but I don't wear gold jewelry. But primarily when you buy a piece of gold jewelry, you have a gold content, and then you have the manufacturing cost, and then you have the design cost. And you look at some of these numismatic coins, you go to the Royal Mint in the UK, for example, I see silver coins there, have $12 worth of silver. So it's a half an ounce coin. They're selling them at $50 US. Now, an ounce of silver, let's say an ounce of silver is $24 right now, US dollars. They're selling half an ounce of silver, which has $12 value, for $50. So you've got $12 worth of intrinsic value there, and the rest of the cost is actually the design, the production, whatever it might be. Now, I can assure you, in the times of a crisis or times of liquidation, you walk back in there and want to sell it back to them, you're not going to get anywhere near your your $50. They'll give you probably the silver price, maybe the silver price, maybe they even discount on that. So unless you're an expert in this particular field, I wouldn't touch it. And on the point regarding that, you take a British sovereign coin, or you take a US sovereign coin, or an Australian sovereign coin, and then I want to take it out of the US and take it into another country and try and spend that, or it's not really legal tender. It's only legal tender in that particular country. That's the point you're making. And I'll give you an example. Philip Judge, the bullion banker that we speak about on many of our webcasts. In fact, we had a conference call yesterday with Philip. He's in Central America. I knew for many years ago, he came to the Perth Mint with us at that time, actually, and he used to do a lot of business with the Perth Mint, producing beautiful coins of Abraham and Moses and things like that. Philip's the one that introduced me to the world of gold. But in Australia, up until the 1960s, we had silver coin. We had coins, and they were produced primarily from silver. So there was I always give the example of a quarter in the US contains 5.6 grams of silver back in the 1960s. Then after that, it's just a base metal. I give that example. Well, in Australia, it was the same deal. Up until 1966, our coins contained actually precious metals. And after 1966, they took it all out, took it back to base metals. And Phillips has bags and bags. He used to collect the 50-cent pieces. We had our 50-cent pieces. I don't have one here. They're sort of hexagonal, I suppose. 8 or 12 sides or something like that. Quite a heavy coin, and many of them had silver in them in that respect. And he had bags of these things, and he could never. And of course, after the currency changed, he wanted to, of course, get the valuation based on the silver content, and they wouldn't give it to him. So he wanted to melt it down, but legally, because it's a government property, unless you did it on the black market, no one's going to melt them down for you. So he's stuck with all these bags of silver coins, which have value, but because they've got a stamp of a sovereign state on them and the true ownership of them, he couldn't do anything with them. Actually, it only had the value of 50 cents. The face value of these coins was 50 cents, but the silver value today would probably be a couple of dollars. So his idea was, I want to actually liquidate these, and he can't do it. Now, of course, if he wanted to buy himself an urn and melt them down or do it on the black market, I'm sure he could do that, but he's not so interested in doing it. But the point I'm making is what you're talking about, Claudia, is the point of liquidity of that. And this is the point that Philip was pointing out to us. So with us, you don't have that issue. With us, it's very, very simple. You can, number one, you can come in, you can buy gold and silver from as little as 25 euros per month, a couple of dollars a day. It's very clear what you're going to pay for your gold. It's going to be gold or silver. It's going to be 3% above spot if you're an active member. If you're not an active member, you're going to pay 8%. When it comes to liquidation, if you're an active member, there's zero fees. So there's no spread on the sellback like I would have experienced in Perth. And of course, if you are a customer or non-active member, you'll pay 3% on the sellback, where you don't have to if you're active in that sense. So for us, it just makes you get a lot more metal for your cash. You get a lot more precious metal for your cash when you're buying through Utopian Global, and you get true ownership of that, and you don't actually lose anything in this numismatic speculation because it's got a pretty kangaroo on there, or maybe a head of state on a particular coin, and has no markings or whatever on it. It has these valuers that create the market, to be quite honest, say that this is a special coin because it's in perfect condition and this and that. But in the end, what they say, the true test of a market price is when you want to sell. That's the true test of what a true valuation is. We've all bought real estate, we've all bought items, and we all have an idea of what we think the valuation is. But the test of the valuation is not proven until there's a buyer on the other side and says, I'm willing to give you that.
And Bill, on that note, I of course did the test with this particular one, which is a MS70 Anak Silver Eagle, which you can of course see here. I think back in the day it has cost me, I talk probably 2010-ish, 9. It did cost me, it's a 1 ounce, $177, something like that. Of course, what's the real value of it right now, 1 ounce of silver?
$24.
Correct. So I did a test here in Germany at my local dealer, actually, in Wiesbaden, actually, in the Wilhelm Street. It's a huge gold shop there, certified. Couldn't sell it, didn't want to have it.
Of course. Certainly not the price that you wanted to offer it for. They may have given you 10% or 5% below spot, but to be quite honest. You could just imagine how many more ounces of silver you could have bought. Many ounces more. And that's really the point. So that's really the point that concerns me, and I'll just repeat myself. It's the ownership of it. You're the true owner of it. You're getting a lot more precious metals for the amount of cash you've got to put out for it. It's easy liquidation, which is really important. That's the key factor. And there's no speculation on pricing because you're just buying pretty much at the spot price. And there's always going to be a market for gold and silver. I mean, it's trillions of dollars. It's $1 trillion market. So there's always going to be a buyer on the other side for your precious metals, just depending what the free market price is. But when you've got products which you're buying at a very low margin above spot, your risk when it comes to selling is very, very low. Of course, the variable is going to be, of course, the US dollar or the British pound exchange rate to the precious metal at that particular time. But don't forget that when we talk about precious metals, we're talking about the exchange rate between currencies and even precious metals. We're talking about a store of value. So if you've been holding onto that particular silver since 2010, okay, silver back at that time, 2010, it may have been up around the $35, $40 mark. I know it hit $48 in 2011, and then it came right down to about $9. And now it's hit $29, nearly $30 a few weeks ago. And now it's back down to about $24. But the wealth preservation side of that particular coin, over time you'll do okay. But all the other silver that you've been buying from us, all those years price averaging, you've done very well out of that, Claudia. Yes, I know you buy 500 gram bars and 250 gram bars and things. So it's smart, and you store a lot of it. But that's really the whole point, is that you're actually preserving and building wealth over a long period of time by price averaging it. Okay, don't get locked into this idea. An ounce of gold is worth $1,900 today, and then tomorrow it's down to $1,800, and you think, oh, you lost money. So you've lost money if you paid for it, of course, $1,900, and if you're forced to liquidate. But if you're not forced to liquidate and you can hold out, the whole point is you're preserving your buying power through the store of value over 3, 4, 5, especially 10 years, because every 10 years your paper currency is going to buy less than half than what it does today. But with gold and silver, you've preserved all of that wealth by converting that paper into precious metals over all those years, Claudia. So well done with that. It's a good discipline to have.
And that's the point. It's not about the price so much. It's always how much ounces do you own. But of course, it comes to the price when, obviously, when you own a day's numismatics, or in comparison to that, obviously, you're way better off when you own bullion. But for me, of course, coming from a socialist communist country, diversification for me is key, because we can go in a whole other discussion, but we don't want to go into, it's too dangerous right now with politics, but so let's not even go there. But diversification for me is super, super key. We of course work here in Switzerland, and Switzerland 700 years hasn't been in any war whatsoever. There's a lot of discussion. I don't know if you listeners have heard or listened to the last podcast of Jim Rogers, the really great, amazing. I like him very much, Jim Rogers, investor. And he always talks about it. There's a lot going on right now. Diversification, having private gold bullion is key to not have it also all in your domicile.
That's very true, Claudia. Well, that's smart, of course. And what Claudia's saying is that's okay if you're. First of all, I'd just like to point a couple of things out. What I've been taught and what many experts actually speak about is that maybe whatever your paper wealth is, that you have, maybe it's 5 to 10% you may hold in precious metals this particular current cycle. Okay, it's like compulsory saving in one sense. We're not telling people that they should be selling their main assets, houses and things, and turning it into gold and silver. Although, you know, silver this year has had a great run. You know, as I said, it was below $12 in March and hit just under $30. But we're not speculating on price. It's about price. It's about hedging against inflation, correct? So what we want to do is take part of our paper wealth, maybe 5, maybe 10%, and each month just buy a bit of a few ounces of silver or gold, or grams of gold, and ounces of silver every particular month, and build it up month after month, year after year. Because in 5 years' time, you're going to have a nice savings of gold and silver there. You've been doing it for 12 years, hitting into 13 years, Claudia. So all that wealth you're preserving. Second point I like about it is, because you've turned it into gold and silver, you're not spending it so easily. If it's in your bank account, where you tend to spend things and put it on the card, and we buy things. So this is a nice way of building wealth that's not losing its purchasing power over a long time. This is the great thing about this, of course. But you know, in case of emergency, if you need to liquidate at any particular time, you can log into your back office and you could say, please sell an ounce, which is 31 grams, or whatever the amount of silver, and that would be converted back to cash and in your account pretty much the same day, actually, in your e-wallet account, and then from there it can be paid out to your Bitcoin account or to your nominated bank account. And of course, only to all KYC approved members and AML approved, which is anti-money laundering regulation. So everyone, before you can buy for us, you have to be KYC approved, which is just part of our process on our platform.
And the other thing for me, what I always talk and tell people, what I do is, you know, I buy gold and silver, I convert into gold and silver. Why? Because it's a savings plan. It is my wealth preservation, my labor, my time, my trade for a currency is losing value. I believe everybody gets this point now. I hope at least you get this point now. So by saving in gold and silver, well, what do I do? Well, I protect, of course, that labor of mine, that time of mine from losing, right? But on the other hand, on the savings plan, Bill, what I like so much, besides, of course, the flexibility, is that, as you said, you get really in this habit, because think about, you have an insurance policy for your house, you have an insurance policy for your car, you have an insurance policy for all kinds of stuff. What insurance policy do you have for your time, which is so valuable, we never get back, which you're trading for your money?
It's a great point, Claudia. I mean, personally, we don't like paying for insurance policies, to be quite honest. It's a bit painful, isn't it? But what's the bigger pain? If your house burnt down or you crashed your car and you didn't have insurance, there's a bit more pain, isn't there? Well, it comes if you understand that the monetary system is designed to transfer wealth back to the central banking system, and that your currency is losing half of its buying power. Whatever it got here in euros and Swiss francs, whatever it might be, it's going to buy half than what it does now in less than 10 years' time. Well, once you know that, you realize you have to build up your wealth preservation through the ownership of precious metals. That's really just a simple concept we have, and there's a very highly liquid form that you can actually do it. But buying between bullion, which we have, even our collectibles, they're bullion, because the valuation is based on the metal content, not based on the artwork or the whatever of the design of the particular coin. It's based on the actual precious metal value itself. And that's why it's all classified as bullion. The only thing when it comes to silver, I'm going to touch on this briefly, Claudia, is the shipping of silver globally. It gets quite challenging because international shipping standards have changed a bit, but it doesn't matter. You have the ability to be able to buy month after month, or whenever you want to buy silver, and have it stored at the Loomis International Storage Facility, either in Dubai. Primarily we use Switzerland, actually, and it's highly liquid. So it gives you diversification outside your country. So let's say if governments change the laws, whatever, you have a nest egg sitting outside your country that can be converted back to cash at any particular time, and very quickly, which is really important. Gold is not really a problem, but certainly for most countries, but certainly silver is, because it's an industrial metal. So I just wanted to touch on that.
Well, thank you, Bill. It was a great hangout. I think we got a lot of questions hopefully answered for our listeners who are always asking about numismatic versus, of course, bullion. Now, I want to challenge you on the next live. I would love to talk about Bitcoin versus gold, or gold versus Bitcoin, because this is also a very hot discussed topic at the moment. I for myself like, of course, Bitcoin as well. I love gold. I like silver. I like Bitcoin as well. But there's lots of things I would love to discuss on, and I would like to take this challenge, of course, for you on. Let's talk about it. Let's of course talk about it. It's our personal opinion. We're not talking any advice or whatsoever. Just a few points on, of course, cryptocurrency.
That's actually a very exciting subject to speak about, and also one dear to my heart. So I look forward to that, Claudia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, thank you all your listeners. Please comment below, comment on the YouTube, comment on, of course, the stream, share the stream with other people, like it, hopefully ask questions, and ask us questions, what topics would you like to actually talk about on some of our next streams. So with that, thank you so much. And again, thanks to our founder and CEO for talking Global Bill Wealth, and have all a blessed evening.
Thanks, Claudia. Pleasure. Well, thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.